Good start.
They right up the sky. And basically, it was a very small sort of affair on the beach, and we got a bunch of, like gift certificates, like Bed Bath & Beyond, and Target, things that just screamed, "You're becoming an adult, congratulations." And then we got this one really kind of fabulous engraved box that was very unique, and the engraving had to do with this idea that the water would come and wash away the evidence, the footprints in the sand, the things that had taken place on our wedding day, that we'd be left with this memory of what had transpired. So I was kind of in a bad mood following my wedding because Kevin and I both got sick and we couldn't leave our hotel. So we were kind of newlywed, trapped together, and we started thinking of this really morbid story about all these horrible things that happen on the beach and then get washed away and there would be no evidence. So that's how the Silent Beach came to be.
Very nice, and I know we have Toby and Josh here from the film. How about how you cast these guys in the film? What attracted you to these guys? And then maybe if Toby and Josh, what attracted you guys to the roles?
Okay. Well, what attracted me to these guys? I was really picky with my casting process. I have a really, really fabulous casting director that I used named Emily Schweber, and she took me on, and it wasn't a terribly appealing project because it was low budget. And I sort of sat her down and said, look, I know we usually, in the film industry, you cast like 8 weeks out, but it's probably going to take me closer to like 9 months to a year, is what I said. And she was sort of horrified and said, oh, it's never going to take that long. But it did. I met it with a ton of people. It took forever. And the moment I met Toby, pretty much, I knew I wanted to cast him because, most actors, they'll meet with you, they'll sit down, and they'll sort of pitch themselves, as this perfect thing. Like, oh, you're going to cast me. I'm going to be super hardworking. I'm the best actor to ever live.
That's true.
Yeah, well, obviously. Yeah, but no, in Toby's case, he sort of was very real with me and very honest from the get-go, so I knew we'd have a good working relationship. And then, actually, Toby recommended Josh to me, so I called him into audition.
Well, I've been trying to get Josh into the shower for a long time. Finally, I could actually do it.
Amazing.
Without being weird.
So I made everyone's dreams come true.
Yeah, all for me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nice, and Toby, what attracted you to the script? What did you like about the script?
Where are you?
I'm right back here. Yeah, sorry. Just work with it. This is cool.
I liked it because Brendan is completely kind of the opposite to who I am, and it was a challenging thought of like playing someone that, when you're very vulnerable when you're a teenager and those horrible feelings you have, and you try to cover them up by trying to be masculine, whatever. It was just very interesting to me to play someone like that, where for a month we shot that I'd be like tuning into places that I've avoided for a long time. And, it was nice to, it wasn't nice, but it was interesting and satisfying, I guess, to really fully express those those dark things about yourself that you try to cover up, in your life. I don't even know if that was the question you asked.
It's fine.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, I got drunk next door, so
Nice. And Josh, what did you like about the script and Alex as the character?
Well, actually, it's funny. I originally wrote to Mike, and then in the room, we kind of switched things up. I just thought the script was odd to me. It was
very
so.
odd, yeah.
I was working on things that were very, very different, and it was just kind of funny. Like, it was strange. It was really bizarre, and I thought, who wrote this?
I think we all thought we were making like a black comedy. Like I wanted to be weird. I wanted it to be like, either you liked it or you fucking hated it. I don't want it to be like an in-between thing. It was like I find it really funny. A lot of people find it very disturbing. I find it humorous.
I don't know. So I just thought this is so different. It's a huge. It's a risk. And then I came in and met Jen, and obviously I met Toby. So
From the shower.
From the shower.
From the shower.
Indy Pay gets me into the shower.
Me and Josh had been friends a long time before this, though. So it was.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was
the shower.
It was strange, and I don't know. I was just in it.
And I'd like to open it up to the rest of the audience. If you guys have any questions for, we have Kevin, producer, some set design, and then some cast and Jennifer.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah. Constantly getting the shit kicked out.
It was an interesting thing. Obviously, there was a lot going on there for me. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was just kind of an adventure. I mean, it was crazy. We're shooting. Obviously, you're working on an indie, so things go really quickly. And yeah, 1 minute I'm like, literally tied to the pier in Venice Beach, and the next minute I'm in the shower with you, which is awesome. So thanks, man. It was just it was an adventure. Fuck yeah, it was fun. I felt that.
No, I do it that way. I make him seem like they're dead. But they have some life in them, so I can tie them. Oh, the ocean.
Another question?
I have a question about the color games. It seems like every character was associated with a different color. Can you tell me more about that?
That's true. Hi, I'm Sasha Andreev. I was the production designer on it. Well, Jennifer printed out like a 5-page document of single-spaced text about the meanings of color. And then I gave you $500 and then they gave me like $500 and said, go do it. Basically, the space and the all the costumes that they wore were associated with a color scheme. Brennan was black, the mother was yellow, the father was brown. Josh, his character, was orange, and Elise, his sister, was purple. And Mike was blue. And the bum was white, which was interesting because usually you think of a bum as kind of a dirty, grayish character. But she wanted him to be sort of represented, sort of a sense of purity, somebody who essentially saves him as an angel towards the end of the movie. So we had to play with those themes both in the space and in the costume design, and it was a challenge, definitely. You get good at returning things. And if anyone is in the film industry, you know how well that works. But the whole idea was that Brennan comes into this family that has these distinct profiles and essentially starts absorbing them. So as his character progresses through the film, he starts taking on various objects that are personal to each of the characters. Whereas they start taking on his color because he influences each one of the characters in a specific way. So not only did that come through the acting, obviously, but also through the design themes and the visual themes. And initially it felt like, well, they're going to seem like Power Rangers.
I never noticed that.
Because they're going to be these very specific color schemes. But as I think the film progresses, you don't really think about it. It works in the subconscious, and you realize that not only is he taken over and manifests himself through his actions, but also visually with telling the story at the same time. So that was the overall concept of the film.
And that even carried into the post-production when we did color. The film becomes more and more desaturated towards the end of the film until the final shot. The final shot, we put all the color back in on the pier. But as the family starts making the decisions that they make, the actual color in the movie we tone down more and more until that final thing.
It's a really tough sell, the DP.
It was a tough sell.
And Kevin is the producer and the editor, by the way.
Yes, I know.
I'd like to jump back in with another question. Actually, maybe Kevin, you can answer this. Just I love hearing, as these independent films get made, just the things that you do to cut the budget, things you do to, push the pennies and make sure.
Sure. I was the producer and the editor and the location manager and the location scout.
And my manager.
And I got things for the actors, and
Cigarettes.
I did a lot of basically like you kind of do the jobs that you can't afford people to do, and that's like the main money saving thing because you're doing so much, and even Sasha was like, he was the production designer. He was also handling costumes and props and sets. So it was basically like each person's job was not just that job; it was taking on everything else. And then some things you have to pay for because we shot in LA, which I probably won't do again on a low budget. But you tend to cut corners where you can. The last 3 days of the shoot we weren't permitted, kind of thing.
That was fun.
So it's those kinds of things. We had trailers that like the air conditioning didn't work most of the time. I'm sure Toby liked that one.
I loved it. Oh, that's my favorite part.
But yeah, I mean, just anything you can. A lot of returns. These guys work for pretty much scale. I mean, just the collection, across the board, money saving kind of thing.
Any more questions, guys? Right.
How did the family choose to kill him instead of just calling the police?
Okay, this is like my favorite question of all
This
time.
is your favorite. This is one of
I've
your favorites.
been harping on this for years now.
I still don't even understand the concept, but
Really? That's so comforting. I'm so
No,
great to hear
absolutely
that
not.
way. Anyway, yeah, so the reason that they don't call the cops is because this is a family that had a status quo that was arguably not terribly strong. The parents sort of convene and sort of almost silently agree to let the stranger come in and take over their son's role in the house. The mother arguably has some odd attraction to Brennan. The daughter has some odd attraction to Brennan. This isn't a family that's thriving, I wouldn't say, to begin with. Right? So they needed some help. So everyone always sort of blames Brennan and says he's this, horrid little creep who comes in and wrecks everyone's lives. But in the end, actually, even though his actions were all quite pernicious, what he does is he bonds them with his terrible secret. And I love the idea that the Henderson family decides to act together to solve their own dirty laundry rather than to air it publicly. Because what it does is it brings them closer together and forever bonds them in a way that they never could have before Brennan's presence in their life. Because now there's a deep, horrible secret. And nothing keeps a family together like attempted murder.
or anyone. Believe me.
Another question? Okay.
Did you film like in order of how we see things, or was it?
No, we did not shoot chronologically at all. It's very hard to do that. We shot the whole movie in 18 days. So like everything on the beach and the pier was shot in 3 days, which is the worst. It's just the worst thing ever. I mean, it's so hard to shoot at the beach. I hate pedestrians on the beach now. I cannot go to the beach anymore.
Surfers.
Oh, surfers! Every time a surfer would go by, I'd freak out.
And that's another money saving thing. We couldn't afford the cops to block pedestrian traffic, so it was like me and the first AD kind of asking people, because you can't really block it. It's illegal.
I think me at one point.
And
too,
even
like,
even the actors got involved.
Yeah, people aren't terribly cooperative when
What?
they're doing their yoga
Yeah.
in the morning.
The one thing that was really great about what happened was, as much as we joke about, was the shower scene was the last scene that we did, and it's it's a difficult scene to do in itself. But me and Josh had known each other quite a few years beforehand, and I think luckily for that scene, for me especially, it's not like I can dive into something like that, but we were so, I think we both knew what our characters were, that as strange it would seem, it didn't really feel that weird. We kind of sort of had, we both knew what we were doing in the film. It was like, just go balls out and do it. And, I, for a couple of takes, didn't sell it, so we did a couple more. I'm confident to say that now, but no, I mean, all in all, yeah, you never can shoot in order, but I am thankful that scene came at the end, because for me that was a very difficult scene to imagine in my head to have to act. So that helped. But when you're doing a shoot like this, it is very stressful. You have lack of time, but there's also, on the plus side, is that you're so always in it, because you don't have any time, that you're always in character. Day after day, getting into it. So yeah, it works for you, and budget and stuff works against you, but it helps for me in certain ways.
How long ago was it filmed?
We wrapped production finally, exactly this week last year, and we finished post-production in March.
Another question? I personally would like to know, Toby, just if you did any research, is there any performances of people, because Brendan has to be so charming, but also something's up with him as the movie goes along. Was there any kind of characters that you studied, or people that maybe you drew on from your past, or?
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of movies that I love, movies from the 50s and stuff where it wasn't so much they were completely different characters, but they were characters that held the movie together. I don't really have anything, as I said, in common with Brennan. So, but I did have a period of my life where I was a very awkward teenager, a very insecure person that was very desperate, and very trying to belong to someone. So yeah, I just really went to a part of myself that I've avoided for a long time and just stayed there with him. Like, there's narcissism, I think, in acting. I mean, everyone wants to look cool on screen. I mean, and you have a lot of opportunities to do movies where you look glamorous and you look really cool. And every motivation that I had to make myself look that way, I had to literally do the opposite effect and be like, that's not Brennan. Brennan isn't cool. And Brennan, he's trying to be, but he's not. So it was difficult. I was fighting what I would like to do personally to make myself look a certain way, and just tuning into those most horrible, vulnerable, terrible parts of yourself you try to ignore or cover throughout your life.
You go ahead. I was just going to say that one thing that Jen and I did that we used kind of as a base, a film that we really loved, was this French film called With a Friend Like Harry Who Meets Enemies. You guys have ever seen that? Anyone? But that we kind of passed around to everybody
Who was involved in the movie because we felt like we were trying, that was like what we were trying to do,
I think Toby's also being a little bit humble. I mean, we did work from February to summer at least once a week. We spoke almost every day. He watched tons of movies.
No, we did. I think what I'm trying to say is that I had an idea of Brennan in my head, but the panic of what as an actor that you see in your head, and you see it so clearly that it's in front of you, but to get there on set and portray it is a whole different thing. And you can say a lot of things, but to go and do it is a different thing. And it was just more of fighting the emotions to get it done. And as I said, I feel like the short time we had helped me because I had no time to come out of Brennan. We would shoot, I'd go to sleep, wake up, and shoot again. So it wasn't like I could, text all the girls that I was texting, or I could text as Toby. But, I was being Brennan, that didn't have any. It wasn't the same that no one was texting me at the time.
I just want to touch briefly, ever so briefly, on also what attracted me to this, which is just that the people that were involved. I mean, when I met Jen and Kevin, I knew Toby, obviously, Sasha I met later. It was just it was a good, open group of people that wanted to have fun making a film, which is what it really is about at the end of the day. I mean, you can't take it that seriously. We're making films, it's a privilege to make a film, and I think when you go into it knowing that, and to go into something where people are going to take risks. I mean, this is not the kind of thing that I get that's a big studio film. You don't get this bizarre tone where crazy shit is happening. And I think to get to work on something like that with people who are open and really want to take a risk and have fun making something, it's like, why the fuck not? Why wouldn't you?
You're right. I mean, studio gigs are great, and I mean, the things about it is there's the yin and yang. Like studio gigs get seen, but a lot of the time you don't get to do what you want in them. And projects like this, I mean, I don't know how much you're going to get seen, but why not make something different, even if it,
You have no idea what things
yeah, it may not hit with people. It might do. I mean, but what the fuck, you might as well.
Right here.
So you've talked about some of the films that were an inspiration. Did you see Michael Haneke's film Mind Games? I mean, the one that was made. There was an English version. He had one in German. It reminded me. The tone of the character reminded me a bit of Michael Pitt.
Our panel moderator in Transylvania Film Festival said that we should watch that movie.
Yeah, well, you
I'm
should
getting
watch
a lot
it.
of Michael Pitt these days. Actually, I actually.
But were there other movies? I mean, also Single White Female. There's lots of films that have.
Yeah,
this.
but, no,
That's my least favorite.
Yes, we did not want to do it like single.
No, but I'm just saying there are films that have dealt with this theme before.
Yes, I think identity theft is a major theme. I mean, and it's dealt with in studio films as well. I mean, I know that The Roommate.
We could have gone that way though. We could have done it wrong and been exactly that, just like Single White Female 3.
Yes, well, we could have, but we didn't. And yes, because The Roommate, ironically also had Frances Fisher in it, and I know.
Oh, really?
Yes, and when I cast her, we had this 2.5. For Frances, it was I was interviewing her and she was interviewing me at the same time, and so we had this 2.5 hour long discussion about all the things that we liked about The Roommate and things that we didn't like about The Roommate and things that were going to make this project different from The Roommate. And what I like about it is that I don't feel like we took the characters and made them kind of flat. I think that in a lot of times in the studio films, they sort of stereotype a character because they know it'll sell a certain way. And in this, I really wanted my actors to feel like they were free to experiment and find a tone that really kind of, jive with who they were and what they wanted to bring to the role. And we did rewrites and all kinds of things to make that happen.
It could have gone that way. I feel like for me, I mean, like for Brendan, like I don't like sympathize with him, and like I neutral of him, but I didn't want to be like a hated cut, right? Like could have easily gone the road of like I'm a psychopath, I'm taking over your family, and we've all seen it before, but I wanted at least to portray something that wasn't like trying to be that way. It's just
like
a lost soul, really.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking on that, I really love what the feeling I always get with this movie is that kind of everyone, there's no good and bad people in the movie. I mean, obviously, Brennan has these horrible things that he's doing, but the family has these horrible things that they're doing, and by the end of it, everyone's made terrible decisions. There's not like a hero and a villain kind of.
Well, you definitely have to see the Michael Haneke film. But let me. The other part of my question was, and you kind of addressed it, was It was interesting the older cast that you had, because those were the best known actors in the film, especially John Billingsley. I was glad to see that you had him, because I'm a Star Trek, so I have my Star Trek roots there. And so how did you get them? And select them?
Well, the way that it worked was that I cast the younger actors first, and then I had a list actually of maybe 5 adults that I was interested in for each of the roles, and they were both on it to begin with. Toby and I, on a fluke, one day we went to see Midnight in Paris, and I was looking at Mimi Kennedy, I think, for the role of Candy Henderson, but I left it with Kurt Fuller in mind for Howard, and so I went back to my casting director and I said, hey, how about Kurt Fuller? I think he's kind of awesome. And she said, that's not going to happen. And
good feedback.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, but you know what, let's just try anyway, because that way if he's going to pass, it'll be a quick pass, like 24 hours, like this is ridiculous, So we sent it in to his manager, and it just so happened that Kurt was at the manager's office when it came in, which is the only reason he ever got to see the script. But he read it, he took it home, and he read it, and to his credit, he called me the next day and accepted the role. So
Yeah, Kurt was actually the fastest from script delivery to the contract being done. It was 2 days.
He really pushed for it.
And he's fantastic, because I, as a younger person, remember him from some great comedy movies, and so to work with someone like that, you might be having an impression of him, but he's got chops too, there's anyone else I've worked with.
Kurt's fabulous, and he's really near and dear friend. He's a fabulous human being as well, as is Frances. And Frances was wonderful because my women list ended up being shorter than my man list, just due to the nature that there's fewer. Yeah, well, for my man list, for my dad, okay? Because of the nature that there's fewer women who are working in that age range and who would be available to someone like me. So Frances was, the second person that I spoke to on my list, and I didn't really know anything about her other than she was in Titanic. That's what everybody knows about Frances, because it's the greatest movie ever, right? So anyway, I called her, and she said, why should I do your movie? And then there was a minute pause, and I was like, oh, you seriously want me to go into all the reasons you just right now on the phone? So I talked to her, I think I talked for 45 minutes about all the merits of this project and why it was important to me and why I was competent to direct it, which is hard to do because I really have only done short films, but I convinced her, and she was very, very open and very giving of her time. She had us all over to rehearse and discuss the script and the material, and I'm very, very grateful for
even as actors, I think, working with seasoned actors is really, you can't learn anything quicker than working with people like that. I mean, you might be freaking out about something, and they're so calm, and they'll just bring that to you and be like, we're going to do this no matter, we're going to get it done. And I think, I learned a lot from a seasoned actor like that, especially from them too.
And John Billingsley is also really wonderful. He's actually, seeing him, he's very serious about his craft. He's very methodical in the way that he studies his roles, and he's actually doing a play in Pasadena right now that's going
that
through
all
the
of
end
you
of
here in
August.
New York should go.
Well, no, but I'm going to go see it, and I think there's a lot to be said for actors who really push themselves to continue their work and their study on the stage as well as on the screen.
You have time for one more? Right there.
I'm wondering if the movie stands
yeah. I mean, we had to cut. It was difficult because you only have 18 shooting days, and there's really no room for error, like from a directing standpoint. So we ended up editing a lot of it in my head as I went along to make sure that we had enough coverage to actually have a feature film. So a lot of things got cut, while we were on set, or they didn't work on set, and so we cut them, or in the post-production, side of things, I realized that shot could have been better, so I replaced it with something else, and, so much of a film was created in the editing room. I don't know how many people actually realize that, but it ended up being something really special and something that I'm very, very glad I had the opportunity to collaborate with Kevin on.
Thanks, guys. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you so much.